Coming up on Jerusalem Dateline, fighting subsides in northern Gaza, while the Houthis continue attacking ships in the Red Sea. Plus, revisiting a Jerusalem pilgrimage when spiritual leaders from the black community honored Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s unfulfilled wish. And beseeching God at the Western Wall for deliverance of the hostages and from the pure evil that surfaced on October 7th. Plus, CBN partners making a difference for individuals emotionally affected by war. All this and more coming up on this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. As fighting continues in the Gaza Strip and against Hezbollah in the north, Israel's defense minister says Israel's future depends on the outcome of this war. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has that story.
Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says the intensive fighting in the northern Gaza Strip has ended and will also be over soon in the city of Khan Yunis in southern Gaza. But the Israeli military will keep attacking to eliminate Hamas capabilities and return the hostages home.
The cruel enemy before us understands only force. If the fire stops, the fate of the abductees will be sealed for many years in the captivity of Hamas. Without military pressure, no one will talk to us. Without military pressure, we will not be able to reach any agreements. Only from a position of strength can the abductees be freed.
Hamas launched dozens of rockets at southern Israeli communities on Tuesday, causing some damage. Hamas marked 100 days of war by releasing videos about 3 hostages, Itai Sversky, Yossi Sharabi, and Noah Argamani, whose mother has brain cancer and recently appealed for the release of her daughter so she can see her before she dies.
26-year-old Noah Argamani was with her friends celebrating peace at the Nova Music Festival before being seized by Hamas. The image of Noah on the back of a motorcycle, surrounded by Hamas terrorists, crying out for help, shook the world.
First came a video of 3 captives, then a guessing game, followed by another video with one of the 3 hostages explaining that the other 2 were killed by Israeli fire.
Hamas is weaponizing social media as an instrument of war. Hamas wages psychological warfare to terrorize and torment the hostages, their families, and the world.
Israel says Hamas is lying about the idea of targeting the buildings where the hostages were held, but did notify the families of the 2 men that it has concerns about their well-being. Inside Israel, 2 terrorists who were working at an Israeli car wash illegally carried out multiple stabbing and car ramming attacks on Monday in the city of Ra'anana near Tel Aviv. 1 woman was killed and 17 others injured, including children in the terror attacks, as Israel's cabinet continues to debate whether or not to allow West Bank Palestinians into the country to work. On the northern front, Israel struck Hezbollah targets on Monday. Earlier, a Hezbollah rocket made a direct hit on a home in an agricultural community along the border, killing 2 Israelis. Iranian-backed groups continue to use the Gaza war as an excuse to carry out attacks in the region. Sources said the Iranian Revolutionary Guards launched ballistic missiles that hit an upscale area in Erbil, Iraq, near the U.S. consulate. 4 civilians were reportedly killed and 6 injured. Iran announced it had launched strikes against what it called an Israeli spy headquarters and the gathering of anti-Iranian terrorist groups. Earlier, Houthi rebels fired a missile at a U.S.-owned ship off the coast of Yemen less than a day after they launched an anti-ship cruise missile at an American destroyer in the Red Sea.
The Yemeni armed forces consider all American and British ships and warships participating in the aggression against our country as hostile targets.
For now, Israel's main focus remains on the war against Hamas in Gaza, with the goal of wiping out their terrorist capability to keep Israel safe in the future. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
It's been widely documented that anti-Semitic incidents across North America dramatically increased following the October 7th Hamas attacks. Many incidents are happening on major university campuses, and a number of students are fighting back. Their decision brought them to Israel to join a Take Action for Israel mission.
Right now, if you're a student in support of Israel on a U.S. campus, you're in the minority, and you may even be in for a fight. Knesset member and former UN Ambassador Danny Danon met with the students at the Knesset and encouraged them to develop strategies on how to fight anti-Semitic propaganda on campus.
We are fighting the same fight. We are fighting evil. Today it's very hard to be supporter of Israel on US campuses. Anti-Semitism is on the rise. We saw Palestinian demonstrations, violent.
The students described some of what they had witnessed.
The university got a lot more tense after October 7th. There were protest rallies from the Palestinian side and emails by the president that originally weren't so positive towards us.
Shortly after the war starts and all these things start going around, like Israel's an apartheid state, Israel's genocidal, it turns into a rally of pro-Palestinian people chanting from the river to the sea. I have to go to class. I turn around, this girl grabs my Star of David necklace and goes, "You're a colonizer."
I go to the University of Washington in Seattle, which is a very contentious campus. Since October the 7th, not only has anti-Semitism been on the rise, it's been encouraged. And the media in Seattle, the media around UW papers, Seattle Times, all of it has just left such a sense of despair.
Danon emphasizes the importance of speaking up for truth.
Social media, it's very easy to spread hate and lies, and I think the majority of the students are allowing it to become the narrative. I think for you shouldn't be afraid from taking the stand and building partnership, with Christian groups, with other organizations.
Christians, looking at my social media, were some of the only people who were not Jewish to post about the October 7th massacre and who have continued to give me support.
Carlson is the only non-Jewish delegate and says his Christian faith connects him with the importance of standing with Israel.
My campus is unique. We don't have a lot of anti-Semitism, but at the same time, there's not a lot of support for Israel. My role is to establish a narrative for Israel, and that means sharing the stories that I learned from here back on my campus.
Hasbara fellowships are active on almost 100 campuses and are partnering with IsraelAmbassadors.com, created after October 7th to bring students to Israel to educate them to advocate effectively.
They had to be leaders that were really active against anti-Semitism, so they had to be really effective already.
Students say that being here will help them on their mission when they return home.
Seeing firsthand is a lot different than online, all the pictures and videos. The police station in Sderot being completely destroyed, all the bullet holes, and hearing from survivors, hostage families, what they're going through made 100% clear that on campus I have to continue fighting.
Meeting with the President Herzog, and I learned the stories about what happened. It's going to stick with me forever, but it's what I'm going to be able to use and bring that back to campus.
I have actually joined a Jewish alliance group of legal professionals, of lawyers and notaries. I also want to take everything that I'm learning from speaking with political dignitaries.
Danon tells CBN News that he wishes he could bring thousands of students to see the reality of what Israel is facing.
They gained tools and confidence to go back home and to fight anti-Semitism on campus.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Coming up, honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We take a look at his legacy and deep love for Israel when we come back. This week, Americans remember the legacy of civil rights legend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Last year, several hundred African Americans came to Jerusalem to march down Martin Luther King Street and pay tribute to Dr. King. The participants wanted to both honor his love of Israel and show they're carrying it forward. King and his wife visited Israel in 1959, and he had hoped to return in 1968 with thousands of his people.
His plan was to bring about 3,000 African Americans, and he had 600 that signed up right away. And unfortunately, he was killed before he could come.
55 years later, that same number joined it here to march and to help fulfill his dream.
Lift every voice and sing.
It's really kind of a prophetic sign for us, just to see that exact number being fulfilled now in 2023. So it's amazing.
We're standing here literally at Martin Luther King Street in Jerusalem. Most folks have no idea, not only that there's a Martin Luther King Street, but that he was so pro-Israel.
In what would be his final speech, King also referred to his Israel's border visit, connecting America's civil rights struggle to the Israelites entering the Promised Land.
I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the Promised Land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the Promised Land.
A Jerusalem deputy mayor pointed out the event's amazing timing, and that this same week Jews studied in the Torah about Moses leading his people to the Promised Land, but did not get to join them.
Moses took the Jewish people, the Israelites, to the border of Israel, but did not get to go in with them himself. And that connects to Dr. Martin Luther King.
And he went on to say that he may not get there with us, but we as a people will get to the Promised Land. And here we are, having just walked down Martin Luther King Street in Jerusalem.
It's not a coincidence that you're here, that all of you are here on this ground. Everyone that I've talked to that came in my group of hundreds of people have told me that they felt summoned here. It was almost like something was pulling them to come at this specific time, and we all know who that someone was. I believe that was the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, literally summoning his people.
What an amazing day this is. For truly, this is the day that the Lord has made, and we are rejoicing in it.
I love the fact that these incredible spiritual leaders from the Black community in the United States and around the world are here in solidarity, in love, in showing us their support on Martin Luther King Jr. Street.
Let us march on till victory is won.
Black America loves you. Yes. Black America is standing with you. Yes. We are praying for the peace of Jerusalem by the tens of millions. Yes. And so we're thrilled to be able to carry this message to Israelis.
I am so grateful that Dr. Coretta Scott King knew the heart that her husband had for Israel, and she continued that work. And just to have the women here in the land is so amazing, because now we can teach our children, we can share with our children the importance of, or the significance of blessing Israel.
I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Martin Luther King Street, Jerusalem. Up next, exposing the training of a generation, summer camps teaching children to hate Jews, and the bitter fruit that resulted. In 2021, CBN News reported on summer youth camps in Gaza, run by Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. In going over the details, we see they laid out a chilling preview of what happened on October 7th. And now the Israeli government agrees that Hamas made it official policy to use these camps to indoctrinate young men in jihad and anti-Semitism. Summer camps usually focus on fun through swimming, sports, and fellowship. In the Gaza Strip, however, Hamas and Islamic Jihad use them to instill a dangerous message. Leaders labeled these gatherings the Summer of Liberation.
We did not come here to enjoy ourselves or to play or anything like that. We came with our souls, our blood, our martyrs, and are wounded to sacrifice ourselves for Palestine and for our people.
This promotional video urged students of all grade levels, from primary through college, to participate. Activities included target practice involving AK-47s, anti-tank weapons, and video simulations.
So that in the next phase, Allah willing, these boys will be able to confront the plundering enemy and disfigure its face in the next war.
In May of 2021, Hamas and other Islamic groups used the name the Sword of Jerusalem when describing that year's 11-day war with Israel. Their goal? Prepare the coming generation for the next war.
We say to the enemy, these children picked up these weapons, and we train them how to use them, as well as how to take security measures, so that they will follow in the footsteps of their fathers and take up arms, Allah willing.
These young men and boys learned anti-Semitism at an early age.
We asked Hitler why he left some of you alive. He did so in order to show us how wicked you are. We will come to you from under the ground and hammer fear into your hearts, and above the ground we will tear your bodies apart with our rockets. Scram into the shelters, you mice, you sons of Jewish women.
When viewing the footage of the summer camp side by side with the attacks from October 7th, it's sobering evidence of how that training became reality, with the devastating results of 1,200 Israelis murdered and 240 kidnapped. In an interview with NBC News, Israeli President Isaac Herzog revealed this terror training to the world.
Let me show you a document, a highly confidential, strictly confidential document, which we just unraveled from the Hamas headquarters. It's a brochure, which is a directive by the commanders of Hamas as to how to manage summer camps for children in order to disseminate the values of jihad. It says it clearly, to disseminate the values of jihad and the values of the resistance, meaning terror, and how to make it a militarized society.
Herzog compared these camps of hatred to what's instilled in other parts of the world.
Whilst we all know what summer camps are and what they're aimed for and what a wonderful experience it is to enable youngsters, kids and adults, adolescents to become citizens of the free world with liberties, with happiness, with joy, with sports, here the entire aim is to make them terrorists.
Given the results, it appears clear Hamas's goal of training the next generation for jihad tragically succeeded on October 7th. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Israel recently reached the grim milestone of 100 days of war and captivity for the more than 100 hostages. Israeli religious leaders called for a prayer gathering at the Western Wall to cry out to God, and tens of thousands of Israelis responded. Take a look.
Thousands of Jews came here to the Western Wall, including the families of those kidnapped, the injured, soldiers. They came to cry out, plead, and invoke heavenly mercy upon all of Israel.
We are Jews who believe that by the power of prayer, we can change everything, to do much better, to operate much better. We're people who seek only good, and therefore we stood here, tens of thousands of people, and we ask God that He'll heal the wounded, that He'll return the hostages, that He'll protect the soldiers, that He'll do good in the world, that He'll bring peace to the world.
Rabbi Shmuel Rabinovich, chief rabbis of Israel, and other rabbis led the prayers at one of the holiest sites in Judaism. It was the biggest gathering at the Western Wall in Jerusalem since the October 7th war began. He told CBN News seeing all the different parts of Israeli society, religious and secular, come together as one really touched him.
We are a generation that needs to unite. The 7th of October changed things. Until then, we had a year with lots of arguments. This year, since the 7th of October, we see differently. We see the people of Israel. It turns out that on the inside, they are together. On the inside, they love one another.
During the prayer, shofars and trumpets were sounded. Special prayers were prayed for the well-being of IDF soldiers, the recovery of the wounded, and the return of the captives. Representatives of the captives' families took part in reciting psalms.
I'm feeling strong now. With all of the people are here, coming to be with us, the hostages' families.
Adi's brother, Shlomi Ziv, was kidnapped while working at the Nova Festival. Some hundreds of Israelis were murdered there and dozens of others taken hostage.
What we have without faith, hope, and unity, and praying for God, praying everyone in His way, for the people to come back home, for the health of the injured.
Though it's not easy, she says the people of Israel live.
We know that the government will bring our brothers and sisters, all the hostages, home. And we are supporting the ministry and the IDF and all the forces to bring our families together again, and the heart will be whole again.
Israeli-American Eli Lipschitz says while Israel is fighting back on a physical level, there's more to be done.
There's also a feeling that we need to connect on a spiritual level, to connect everybody together, to pray, to shout out, to scream at what's going on, and to pray to God to help us to bring back the hostages and make sure that everybody that's in harm's way will be safe.
Lipschitz says there's an awakening as to what is going on and what Israel is fighting for.
Obviously, the horrific terrorist attack was an attack against Jews. It's against Jews everywhere. We're fighting a fight that the world's going to be fighting. If it's not going to be fought in Israel, it's going to be fought everywhere else. And it's important that people gather around both praying to God and supporting Israel physically and spiritually, because this is the right war and this is a just war and something that we don't have a choice but to win. We have no place else to go.
Still ahead, traumatized Israelis are finding comfort and safety thanks to the generosity of CBN partners. Like all countries at war, Israel is in a state of shock and pain, with a traumatized population whose scars will remain for a long time. The good news, thanks to you, CBN Israel is on the ground, reaching out to these hurting people with trauma therapy.
The state of Israel went through a serious trauma during the October 7th attacks. The entire state is in a place where personal security has completely weakened. A home is no longer a safe place. A bomb shelter is no longer a safe place. Your mother and father are no longer a safe place. They can suddenly disappear. The army is no longer a safe place. The police, the authorities, everything has been shaken.
7th of October was a change in the mindset, I think, of the Israeli society. We're going to carry it for many years, also for more than one generation. People in Israel are really anxious now.
And of course, even before this war, I always said, unfortunately, we are all in trauma.
And we are in a country in a state of shock and pain. We are currently in a state of survival. We are not yet in a state where we even understand the extent of the disaster that has happened to us.
So we know from our work in Israel and around the world that during a war or during a very stressful event, people are very busy with survival. They are very busy at the moment with finding themselves, whether in hotels or looking for a job or taking care of the kids. What we know from our experience is that after the event, we have a tsunami of people who want therapy.
It will require national treatment throughout the whole country, and of course, private therapy. And we will need to assist every official agency that works in the field of trauma therapy.
It's important to treat each person as an individual, first with respect and then with dignity, and to look at this person with a lot of love and empathy.
Our partnership with CBN is a new partnership, and together we are looking at the challenges, which are many, and what can be adhered to. It minimizes trauma if you are able to respond immediately, and so we are preparing for a large number of therapists that are trained in trauma-focused therapy.
So right now, CBN Israel is partnering with the Israel Trauma Coalition. We are formulating a plan for the wave that we are expecting.
Well, that's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. And remember to continue to pray for the safety of the IDF soldiers, all those caught in harm's way, and for the safe return of all the hostages. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.